Hi everyone, my name is Annabelle. Today we're going to talk about the importance of inclusivity and cultural intelligence. On the surface, it may seem like these things don't really have much of an impact on our lives, but this session is going to educate you all on how these issues affect our everyday lives. These influence our life experience, our workplace culture, and the way we interact with one another. This session will answer these questions. What is equality, diversity, and inclusion? Why is inclusivity important? How can we consider the value of them? An introduction to social and cultural intelligence, and how to champion equality and inclusivity. Before we unpack exactly what these terms mean, I think it's important to start with a quote from the head of global diversity at Warner Brothers, Asif Siddiq. He explains that diversity is the multiple layers of identity that every individual has within an organization. And that means every single person. Inclusion is considering how do you create an environment where people can be their authentic self and celebrate their own unique identities, but then also contribute towards a common goal within an organization. I think it's also important to understand that diversity is a term that is thrown a lot around within the professional world. So it's crucial that you understand what it is. Diversity is reflecting the world around you, and this is something we strive for because it is a reality. It is clear that these things go hand in hand, and you can't do one without the other. You can't have diversity without having inclusion and equality, and vice versa. They both bring intrinsic and unique value to what it means to belong. There is a lot of overlap between the three words of equality, diversity, and inclusion, but it is important to make the distinction between the three. Equality is about everyone having the same rights, status, and opportunities, regardless of their characteristics. Diversity is the practice of involving or including people from a range of different social and ethnic backgrounds and of different genders, sexual orientations, and etc. Inclusion is the practice of providing equal access to opportunities for people who might otherwise be excluded or marginalized. In other words, equality is about equal opportunities and protecting people from being discriminated. We use equity and inclusion as a pathway to equality. We should view equality as the ultimate aim and a foundation of diversity and inclusionary work. To put it in simpler terms, diversity is about reflecting the world around you, and inclusion is the work you do to achieve equality. Why is inclusivity important? Inclusivity and diversity are important for legal reasons, moral reasons, and business reasons. Companies and organizations now see the value in how diversity and inclusivity drives better performance, better productivity, and aligns with legal requirements and is in line with social responsibilities. The Equality Act of 2010 legally protects people from discrimination in the workplace and in the wider society. It replaced previous anti-discrimination laws, such as the Sex Discrimination Act of 1975, the Race Relations Act of 1976, and the Disability Discrimination Act of 1995, with one single act, making it easier to understand and access the law and strengthening protection in some situations. It set out the different ways of which it is unlawful to treat someone. There are 9 protected characteristics under the Equality Act. It is also important to note that there are a number of groups that we may miss if we focus solely on the Equality Act protected characteristics. These are age, disability, gender reassignment, marriage and civil partnerships, pregnancy and maternity, race, religion or belief, sex, and sexual orientation. Class, economic, social, and cultural capital are often two big factors that come into play in the workplace. These are not included in the protected characteristics. Two other examples are gypsy and traveller communities or non-binary people. Although these groups may not explicitly be mentioned in the Equality Act, there is case for law including these communities within the law, such as gypsies and travellers may be classed as racial groups. But overall, there is emphasis of the law in line with diversity requirements. This provides a prominent reason for inclusivity initiatives. Inclusivity and equality, diversity, and inclusion is not just about fulfilling requirements, but it's also about being in alignment with our social standards today. There is a compelling case for more diversity and inclusion in the workplace and beyond. Ensuring that everyone is being treated equally is simply the right thing to do. People matter, and we should all have equal opportunity to develop, progress, and be rewarded and recognised at work. We are actively recognising how social impact and equality is aligned with our morals and is increasingly being a central focus to the way in which we organise ourselves. As well as the moral and ethical argument for equality, diversity, and inclusion, there are many reasons to consider in regard to a business case. The business case for diversity focuses on what it can do for the company, such as company performance and innovation, and this is built on the belief that diversity and inclusion can create positive performances and are better suited to meet the client's needs. This can lead to increased profits, higher employee engagement, the recruit and the retainment of better talent, quicker and better decisions, and higher innovation. So, how do we consider the value of inclusivity? Productive conversation allows us to understand and consider the value of inclusivity. This is because it requires us to understand how our life and our perspective influence our ways of thinking. First of all, don't be afraid to get it wrong. There is no wrong or right answer. All we do in these environments is continuously learn. So, get in there, give it your all, and do some amazing work. For example, I identify as a cisgendered Black woman. Therefore, when I approach these conversations, I speak and contribute as someone with a unique identity, both as a woman and as a Black person. This informs my ideas and my ideology, as well as what I believe equality looks like. This is called positionality. Informed understanding allows you to contribute to the conversation in a meaningful way, whether it's through learning how to be an ally or using your own experience to educate others. Intersectionality is also very important in productive conversation. Intersectionality is defined as the interconnected nature of social categorizations such as race, class, and gender, as they are given and apply to an individual or group. It is regarded as creating overlapping and interdependent systems of discrimination and disadvantage. Through intersectionality, we can understand how everyone's unique identity creates a difference in oppression. It is not about who has the most oppression, but it's about understanding how different factors can create different experiences for individuals. It allows us to create more equitable outcomes. Intersectionality means that we look at the unique forms of oppression created through a range of different experiences. For example, intersectionality recognizes how the oppression of a South Asian woman who was neurodivergent would be separate from a South Asian woman who was LGBTQ. There are differences between them which all need to be understood and accommodated for. Let me tell you a story. What is another way of how we can consider the value of inclusivity? We need to allow everyone to feel seen and valued wherever they are. This has such far-reaching benefits, such as an increase in representation and more success for a range of different communities. To put the value of equality, diversity, and inclusion into perspective, let me start this story. Let's imagine two graduates who have completed the same degree course and have similar amounts of work experience are looking for a job. You would expect them to have had similar experiences in their job search when applying for graduate level jobs. That would make sense, right? In reality, their experiences could be incredibly different, even if they were applying for roles in the same sector and even had identical amounts of work experience. Sociological backgrounds can create very different lived experiences for people who should be equal. And this is not even a fictional story. Did you know that 34% of Black graduates are unemployed upon graduation? This is reported in Blackin and Tappin, the first Black graduate report. Therefore, although students may be qualified and have the right experience for the jobs that they're applying for, their background is influencing their outcomes, which affects them almost 2 times more than their white counterparts. This is an example of how inclusivity has so much value, because without it, disparities like these would not be uncovered nor addressed. As we are entering a more diverse world and we interact with a range of different people, we need to understand the amount of different and unique identities that people have. Addressing, recognizing, and focusing on these issues due to sociological backgrounds will allow us to have a reality where 2 graduates would not have to worry about their race or other backgrounds and how it will influence their job, careers, and outcomes. In line with the example that I just described, lack of inclusion has a widespread impact. To provide more insight to the consequences of lack of inclusion, did you know that applicants from an underrepresented background are more likely to change their name on their CV in order to get to the interview stage and potentially get the job? Lack of inclusion is also the reason why graduates with disabilities are more likely to be unemployed than employed in comparison to the graduates without disabilities. This problem also has direct correlation towards career progression and ambition. Lack of representation because of historic exclusion makes people aim lower or be more realistic in terms of their career aims, which often has racial, gender, class, and other undertones. People believe and accept that their background will impact their chances of success and accommodate for that. This is a reality that needs to change. Social and cultural intelligence skills are something anyone can learn. They don't depend on genes or biology, although some people might be more susceptible to acquiring them than others. The social intelligence theory was first developed by psychologist Edward Thorndike all the way back in 1920. As adults, most of us develop these skills to an extent. We may have some broad idea of what it means to be socially well adept, but we differ in our ability to comply with the rules of social life and navigate them. The more you manage to develop your social intelligence, the more skillful you become at managing complex, changing social environments, as well as your emotions. So, what do we mean when we say social and cultural intelligence? Social and cultural intelligence refers to the ability to get by with other people in a particular context, like knowing when to say things and knowing when to stay silent. It is about understanding communication on a sub-level, decoding emotional signals, and understanding our own as well as others' emotions, social intelligence, and feelings. It gives us tools for achieving greater levels of personal and emotional well-being. Social intelligence influences workplace adaptability, emotional self-regulation, and understanding other people's complex emotions, and builds a variety of skills and traits directly associated with productivity. How do we develop social and cultural intelligence? It all boils down to awareness, understanding social rules and norms. Despite the fact that we all have our own natural ways of conduct and reacting, social intelligence enables us to adapt and understand the norms in specific situations. Social intelligence teaches people to accommodate for all different types of people. It's like meeting the other person halfway. It also requires an understanding of other people's emotional states. The ability to put yourself in another person's shoes is crucial for the developing of social intelligence. To be able to do that, we need to understand a variety of social rules, roles, and communities. It may sound easy, as all you have to do is listen, yet so many of us don't really practice it. To practice active listening, you need to be 100% focused on the other person. Remember what they're talking about, ask for clarifications, comment on their words, prevent yourself from interrupting, and pay attention to their facial and their bodily cues. This allows for the people to feel seen and heard, as well as promoting reciprocal understanding between different types of people. Even if you live in a culturally homogeneous place, knowledge about other cultures can help you understand and expand your views and your beliefs. Challenging our worldviews and practicing tolerance can significantly stimulate our growth as people and as socially conscious beings. How do we champion equality, diversity, and inclusivity? As students, we have so much power to promote ourselves and further our learning. We are able to champion inclusion in various ways, all of which we can start doing from today. Firstly, we must deconstruct our biases. Regardless of how fair-minded we believe ourselves to be, we all make snap judgments influenced by the associations that we hold. We can make decisions faster than we can comprehend, as quickly as 30 milliseconds. Our brain is constantly receiving and processing information. Eric Kandel, a neuroscientist at Columbia University who received a Nobel Prize for his work on memory, believes that up to 90% of our brain works unconsciously. Our brain makes snap judgments about people or situations based upon things such as background, culture, experiences, and exposure to media. These associations we hold, despite sometimes being outside of our conscious awareness, can have a significant influence on our attitudes and behaviour. This means we automatically respond to others. For example, men and women, people from different racial backgrounds and ethnic groups, all in different ways. These associations are difficult to override, regardless of whether we recognise them to be wrong, just because they are so deeply ingrained into our thinking and our emotions. To provide a brief understanding on bias, Here are the 9 types of most common bias which take place in the workplace. Affinity bias, which is gravitating towards people who are similar to you, whether it be based on appearance, background, or beliefs. Appearance bias, where you make judgments based upon the appearance of an individual. Confirmation bias is the tendency to seek out and interpret new information in a way which confirms what you already believe. Attribution bias correlates to people's actions to unrelated or even untrue characteristics. Unconscious gender bias is the unintentional associations based on a person's gender, often stemming from traditions, values, social norms, or culture. Age bias occurs when we make judgments about individuals solely based on their age. Authority bias is the tendency to place more weight on the opinion or the idea of an authority figure. The halo effect is a tendency to use an overall positive impression of a person to influence other judgments of their character. And the horn effect is closely related to the halo effect, but instead of making a positive initial judgment, the horn effect starts with a negative judgment. This causes us to assess the other person's traits of the person negatively. We must note that unconscious bias is not always bad. The fact is, we use all kinds of mental shortcuts countless times every day. But by becoming aware of our unconscious biases, bringing them to consciousness, we can then break the cycle if necessary. What we need to aim for is to deconstruct our unconscious and conscious bias, understanding why we do the things that we do and use it to help us to overcome the harmful ones. So, understanding bias and deconstructing it is crucial to the champion of everyday inclusion. Speaking of championing everyday inclusion, how can you become an equality champion? Firstly, question your stereotypes. Mentally flip whoever you are dealing with to someone else. Test yourself. For instance, if a woman is coming off as arrogant, ask yourself how you'd feel about that situation if it was happening with a man. Reconsider your decisions. Remind yourself of the need to be fair and objective at all times. Ask yourself, what is driving your decision or your point of view? Have you got the hard data? Ask someone with a different outlook on their opinion. This can really help you. Widen your social circle. Try to be friendlier with the people you feel awkward around or you don't know as well. Increase your exposure to other groups. See people as individuals. The biggest and the most important point as students and future professionals is be the change you want to see. This requires you to be proactive and understand that you are capable of making an amazing impact. As someone who will be joining a company or organization, understand that your voice can influence others. It holds weighting and power, and you can use this to the advantage of equality. You can play an active part in championing workplace equality and belonging by joining networks, forums, and other systems or creating your own space. You being there takes a stand against inequality and gives you the opportunity to learn so much. Is there an exciting opportunity where you can uplift people from underrepresented backgrounds? Join in and encourage your colleagues to also take part. If you know that there's an important religious or cultural holiday that your workplace isn't addressing, tap into the relevant departments to ensure that the work is done, to recognise it. Regardless of how culturally homogenous you are, or the workplace may be, tapping into these important dates within culture is so important. I'll say it again. Your voice has the potential to be impactful. Don't ever forget that. It is also important to note that while being a change maker is important, if you are someone with lived experience and may not have the capacity on top of your responsibilities to educate and create change, please do what you feel comfortable doing. Do what works for you. Collaboration is crucial. The cultivation of change cannot rest on the people who suffer the most within the system. Before I leave you, here are some final tips. Learning is continuous. Your learning is continual and it will never really be finished. As social beings, learning about a range of cultures, understanding people and their values, and adapting to a variety of different environments is something which will always be a new experience each time. Embrace the journey and commit to be better. This is a great way to further inclusivity. Fear has two meanings: forget everything and run, or face everything and rise. The choice is yours. There is a lot of fear in regard to getting things wrong. Understand that it is better that you try rather than not try at all. Your efforts are appreciated, and there is always so much to learn from the experience. It is always beneficial, I promise you. Everyone gets things wrong. That is not a problem. Learning from your experience is what is the most important. See feedback as a gift. Feedback can be used by people from underrepresented communities to build awareness. It is a way for more directed progress and could really help further your journey. Inclusivity is a strength in itself. It should be a continuous standard. By understanding how it brings value to every aspect of life, we can contribute to the development of inclusive thinking, workplaces, and environments. As I said before, diversity alone is not a goal. We need to reflect society. And genuine action should not just be an aim, but a standard. We have the right to fight for our companies and our organisations to be more socially responsible and inclusive. This is not something that we will negotiate on. Promoting genuine action and accountability will enable conversation and productivity and innovation around the improving of equitable outcomes for all. Before I leave you, I will show you a quote by visual artist C. Joy Belsey, who says, "We are all equal in the fact that we are all different. We are all the same in the fact that we will never be the same. We are united by the reality that all colours and all cultures are distinct and individual." Thank you very much for watching Inclusivity and Cultural Intelligence. I hope you embrace this learning journey and become a champion for inclusivity wherever you are.